Study on the MCP23S09 I/O expander with SPI interface by Microchip Technology. Welcome to the training module on MCP23S09, an 8-bit general-purpose parallel I/O expansion for I2C bus or SPI applications with open drain outputs. The MCP23S09 is an 8-bit I/O expander with SPI interface operating at 10 MHz. Its I/O can act as a hardware interrupt with 25 mA source or sink current paired I/O. The MCP23X09 consists of multiple 8-bit configuration registers for input, output, and polarity selection. The system master can enable the I/Os as either inputs or outputs by writing the I/O configuration bits. The data for each input or output is kept in the corresponding input or output register. The polarity of the input port register can be inverted with the polarity of the inversion register. All registers can be read by the system master. There are two versions of this device: the MCP23009, which has an I2C interface, and the MCP23S09, which has a SPI interface, when any input state differs from its corresponding input port register state. This is used to indicate to the system master that an input state has changed. When an input state differs from a pre-configured register value, the input capture register captures port values at the time of the interrupt, thereby saving the condition that caused the interrupt. The power on reset sets the register to their default values and initializes the device state machine. The hardware address pin is used to determine the device address. In this diagram, we show a SPI interface block for the MCP23S09. It has 11 individual registers which can be addressed through serial interface block. It can also operate in two modes: byte mode and sequential mode. Byte mode stops the automatic address pointer from being increased. Sequential mode enables automatic address pointer increase. In this diagram, we show how SPI devices are addressed. It has 8 bits, which is a control byte, out of which the first 7 bits represent slave address, and the 8th bit represents whether it is a read or write operation to be performed to the slave address it represents. This slide shows the SPI address in registers and the timing format while addressing the register. This slide addresses how interrupt logic is configured in the MSP23S09. The INT interrupt output can be configured as active low, active high, or open drain via the I/O con register. Each pin is controlled through GPI interrupt enable or disable. Only those pins that are configured as an input with interrupt on change enabled can cause an interrupt. Pins configured as an output have no effect on the interrupt output pin. Input change activity on a port input pin that is enabled for IOC will generate an internal device interrupt, and the device will capture the value of the port and copy it into the interrupt cap. The first interrupt event will cause the port contents to be copied into the interrupt cap register. Subsequent interrupt conditions on the port will not cause an interrupt to occur as long as the interrupt is not cleared by a read of interrupt cap or GPIO. The interrupt will remain active until the interrupt cap or GPIO register is read. The interrupt condition will be cleared after the least significant bit of the data is clocked out during a read operation of GPIO or interrupt cap. This slide shows SPI input and output timing diagram. Here we show a typical performance curve for the output. It is expressed as TV versus VDD.